Alright, hello, hello. So I am going to start streaming. Let me see if I can add my camera. It's not picking up my camera. Alright, so hold on one second. Okay. Alright, so I'm pretty much just gonna be sculpting, honestly. Like I don't really have much plans. Like this is pretty much all I'm gonna be sculpting from. I think I might focus on just like his torso. Because I feel like I've been struggling a lot with getting torsos and connecting them with legs. Um, so first, I want to welcome you to my channel, Art of Tony Pavels. This is kind of like my return to posting on YouTube again. I haven't posted since probably last year, maybe even 2 years ago. But I've been a freelancer for about like 10 years now. I work professionally for about like 6 to 7 years. I created this channel primarily to share my work and my thoughts, but also to like honestly face my anxiety, while just working on my speaking skills. I think sorry about that. I just had to like mute my YouTube because I can't really see the comments. I have to figure out how to do that so I could see it without having to open up YouTube on the side. But yeah, at the moment, I think I'm just gonna be posting once a week. I'll continue posting on Fridays, but I'll just be jumping between me recording, working on something here in ZBrush, or even Blender because I'm jumping into Blender too. I'll probably be playing games too here and there, like every now and then. But primarily, I just wanted to like yap about things, just keep myself accountable and sculpt, practice, day to day. Excuse me. The other aspect of this channel is that like, one thing that I've kind of accepted within the art community is how political art is, and I think that as artists, it's like up to us to create art that represents the times that we're living in. And being a Black American, being it's just my state of being as a political act in and of itself here in the United States. So I will be having political discussion. And ultimately, I just don't want to catch people off guard with me talking about political things like how food, water, and shelter should be free, and how I, as an artist, battle things like depression and anxiety in a collapsing country. I'll try to, be as positive as I can, but I can only be myself. Yeah, yeah. So you know what? Let me just get my pen and let's get into this. So one of the reasons why let's go to the move brush. Should I make this? One of the reasons why I essentially stopped posting is because honestly, it's because of burnout. Like, as much as yeah, honestly, it was just burnout. I think I took on way too much, and oh my god, this is Yeah, I just took on way too much. Oh, that's why. I just took on way too much, and yeah, I think it's important to just like really listen to your body, because if you don't, then you're gonna find yourself uh, unable to work, you know, because your body forces you to essentially take a break. And in my case, while I was working at Meta, I was also taking a course for like character art, and it was an incredible course. I'm glad I took it. I think I learned quite a bit, especially when it comes down to like Marvelous Designer. I think one of my weak points was actually doing clothes and garment design and stuff like that, and using Marvelous Designer as part of that process. But I think I just took on too much. I think I took on way too much, and that's kind of on me, I want to say. But okay, so let's just do this real quick. I want to say that's like on me, but ultimately, it's kind of like the society that we live in, where everything's just on go all the time. You don't really have a chance to take a break, because if you do, that means you're stagnating and essentially failing in some way. It's like how I was like understanding a lot of this. Let me just increase this just a bit. And yeah, I think the burnout was like starting to happen, towards the end of the schooling program, or of the classes. I had already, what am I doing? No, I'm just doodling, honestly. I'm not really trying to do anything crazy, but honestly, I think a lot of it was just pushing myself further than I should have. Honestly, I should have taken a break. And it doesn't help that, being, at Meta, a lot of things were essentially broken. So, essentially I got hired to do character work and stuff, but I'm over here, coding and shit, even though I said that's not like my strong suit. But, yeah, I don't know. It just sucks being in that position, I think. Oh god, I'm totally just like rambling. All right, so okay, so working at Meta and then doing the zombie art school stuff, it was really fun. It was really great, learning on both ends of the spectrum, because again, like as much as I was focused on the character art side of things, they were kind of shoving me into doing more. They were pushing me to do more of the technical stuff, and honestly, like it was a challenge for me, because as much as I did do a bit of the technical art side of things. I did do, blueprints. I have used like C# to like make stuff in Unity like a while ago. I'm familiar with C++. I'm familiar with, using blueprints, but the way like it felt more web-based code, if that makes sense. So it was easy to follow, but it just a lot of the techniques just didn't really make sense, especially for making a real time. But anyways, I'm complaining about something completely different. Anyways, I think once I did finish the program, I did tell somebody, hey, I'll work with you on something. I'm gonna take this off symmetry and just do whatever. And you know, he wanted me to work on a project. Well, actually, I'll do this with symmetry. He wanted me to work on a project with him, and one that I was actually pretty excited to do. But I don't know. I feel so bad because like I was really excited to do it, but early August, just when I was about to jump into things, my father, he passed. And I think, you know, even though we weren't, you know, that close, I think it did shake me up enough to push me over that edge. And I don't know, I couldn't sculpt, you know, I couldn't create. I was just not doing anything really. And you know, I don't want to ever like come at myself for you know, how I handled grief, but it made it worse when, you know, I couldn't perform at work. And you know, being in corporate, you're just a cog, a number. So you know, people don't really care what you're going through. And a lot of it's because everyone's kind of going through something, unfortunately, because of the times that we're in right now, for being real. But I don't know, it just sucks being in that position where, you know, not much. I don't know. I just couldn't really do much, and it's very easy to feel kind of alone in that. I mean, I'm very grateful for my fiance. I think she and my sisters were, you know, very much there for me, just reminding me, you know, just reminding me of myself, really. But I think as an artist, that's like the toughest balancing act, right? Is balancing our personal life and the shit that we go through with everything basically being on fire, for being real. Like, I don't know. The world doesn't really want to wait for anybody, and that sucks. But yeah, like that kind of took me out of it. Took me out of the creation process, and I haven't exactly. And that's actually part of the reason why I'm jumping back into making, you know, YouTube videos, to kind of like return to what it was. Sorry, I'm like thinking way too much while I'm doing this, so I'm taking a bit longer. And that's why I actually kind of like returned to this, is because I just wanted to get back into things, you know, and I don't know. I just feel like why not? At this point, it's just like, why not, you know? Oh my God, I'm definitely rambling. Okay, well, let me take a second to pause. You know, after my dad passed, that was pretty tough to kind of like reconcile with, because it's like that stark reminder, you know, that like where my life goes, where our lives go, essentially is up to us, right? You know, I think when our parents are around, it's very easy to, you know, look towards them, you know, for the answers. But I feel like thinking about the age when my parents had me and my sisters, like, we're all just trying to figure it out, right? Like, nobody really has the answer to, you know, how to live life. Like, at the end of the day, it's like, you know, do as much good as you can, but even that is, it's all perspective, right? It's, you know, what's good to me might not be good to others, but you know, as long as you're not like hurting people intentionally and like you know, yeah, as long as you're not hurting people intentionally, I feel like that in of itself is kind of but yeah, and then soon after, I think like a few months after, that's when my contract ended with Meta. And luckily, I did have some savings to, just like fall back on, just even for just a few months, But work, work calls, huh? For now, I'm just gonna keep this symmetrical. I'm just gonna look at these landmarks and think about that. So this and that. Oh, wrong. This and that. There's the C7. Let's get this down. I'm imagining the Chromium process is right here, so getting posterior deltoid, attaching back here, inserting here, attaching, and then the third. So let's just push this back. And clearly I'm out of practice because, like I said, I kind of just stopped. Like I don't know, I just motherfucking stopped. And I don't know. I think as artists, like, anxiety is one thing. I think anxiety is what fuels my perfectionism, for sure. But what I think most of all is it prevents me from creating also, because I feel like it has to look a certain way. It has to, fit whatever it is that like I'm seeing on like social media or whatever. But I don't know. I think lately I've just been really leaning into the idea that like, make sure you're making art that you like, Just make sure you're making shit that you enjoy, shit that, makes you go, wow, this shit's amazing. Or whatever, because yeah, just make shit that's like interesting to you at the end of the day, because that's kind of like one thing I've been learning. Because, as much as I hadn't been sculpting, I don't know why sculpting was the thing that kind of like slowed down for me, but I was, returning to the foundations of like, sketching and shit like that. And honestly, like what that showed me was, okay, this needs to be flat. And what that showed me was how important the basics are. How important it is to just understand the shape of things, really. Because everything's like either a sphere, a cube, or a cone. And I feel like as digital artists, it's very important to understand that. Yeah, I'm just like looking, doodling, Jesus. It takes so long to do this. And I'm only using that one referenced angle. second. Anyways, as much as I like, for me, this is actually pretty big. It's kind of like me tackling my own fears in a lot of ways, and that fear is to come off as somebody who honestly doesn't know what they're talking about or what they're doing. But not knowing is kind of part of the process. And again, like, the reason why I brought up the 2D side of things is because part of being an artist is kind of just jumping in. Like, I'm not saying jump in on the deep end and saying what you create is going to be perfect, but it's understanding that perfection is not, like, it's not real. It's never gonna happen. None of us are perfect, regardless of what it is that we do or believe or anything like that. And I think for me that was my biggest struggle. But of course, therapy definitely helps out. But I think a big part of that was realizing that a lot of it was also fear. Fear was like a really big. Well, I think it still is in a lot of ways. It's not something that I just get over now that I've acknowledged it. And yeah, of course, therapy is helping to understand, myself and, what it is that that's stopping me, really. Okay, so here, let's do this. Okay, so this should be a bit further down. Yeah, I think for me, a lot of that was just like fear, fear from making mistakes, fear from, just being wrong, and it sucks. It's debilitating because in a lot of ways it's like it's self-sabotage ultimately, like because I'm worried that this specific thing might not come out in a very specific way out of nowhere. Now I kind of stop myself from okay, how is he holding this? So it's supinating already, so his pinky's behind him, so that means this should be here. I'll put his hand in a second. But yeah, like I think perfectionism is a lot of like fear-based thinking, something that I'm still trying to tackle and get over, and I think ultimately doing something like this is a way for me to tackle that. And sorry, I'm like all over the place with my rambling, but yeah, that's so let's just cut this. I think his chest is a bit longer. This should be a bit straighter. Yeah, that's like one of the beautiful things about like I guess like what I've taken back up from 2D is just how it's okay to lean into that imperfection, and I think that's something I'm learning to do more often. It's just leaning into that perfection, that imperfection. Just jumping in, like it's not going to be perfect at first, but screw it. should be square. Also, yeah, just sometimes in life you just gotta say Fujit. You just get it done. And I think this for me is kind of like that warm up because I actually haven't even sculpted today. This is like my first sculpt and warm ups or anything like that. So for this, I think I might separate this section. Let's go ahead and insert ceiling. Wow, oh, I was gonna say his head looks so small. Alright, so there's the BMT brush, which I'm gonna use to like bring his legs a bit further back. Let's actually go ahead and put this down as if it's that looks about right. So hips, I'm always worried I'm doing wrong. So I think it starts here and here. Greater trochanter is right here, but we have gluteus medius, gluteus maximus, goes down, connects to the TFL. This goes all the way down. This part, probably a crease. Just here, biceps femoris. We have the sartorius. I think this should be kind of a bit more. That's sartorius. Which goes here. This is. Oops. The adductors. It's in the ballpark. Clearly, I forgot how to do legs, but I'm not going to look up reference right now. Let's just make sure this should this. Okay, so what I do know is that the femur is very similar to the humerus and that it has epicondyles on the side. So usually what you see is, yes, you do see like the patella, which is like around here. But also, let's just like close this butt up. And for me, I guess it's a bit weird, but I like to push the legs forward like this and then pull them back. That's not how the reference looks, but yeah, bear with me. It's gonna be a while before I get back on this. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just really tough in general to try to, acknowledge, the shit that I've been doing as well. Because, like, again, like, being a black artist and, being in this industry where, well, just in general, being black, you always have to do way, way more than almost anybody else. Like, just to be considered. And, with shit like AI that's coming out where it's like replacing a lot of people, a lot of corporate stuff. Like I don't know. I don't know if corporate is really for me. I loved working in environments where, things were a bit less stressful. Like everything didn't seem like it didn't seem like everything you were working on was gonna, like, if you made a mistake, it was gonna burn down the entire place. Like, like, I don't know. It's just being black in this industry in any industry is pretty tough because a lot of the times it's like I'm just filled with self-doubt or just the feeling that, like, not just imposter syndrome, but just feeling like I don't belong in the room that I'm in. And more often than not, I'm usually in rooms with just other people who don't look like me. I'm usually the only black person in that room. And, I guess it's something that not everybody can understand, but it sucks being in environments where you have to be damn near perfect. And if you do make a mistake, that's who you're seen as. You can't be human. You can't have questions that seem to challenge how things are done. You can't, like I said, you can't make mistakes. The moment you do, that's all you are, and it's like, no matter how much experience I have, no matter how much I've done, how much I've worked on, a lot of the times people will question if I know what I'm talking about. And that doesn't help if I'm already questioning that within myself. Um, I mean, even this, like, maybe it's because I'm talking, but or that I'm not really using a reference. But this looks so funny. um, but it's just I'm just tired of being in spaces where I have to constantly question myself. I have to constantly question, people's motives. Like if what I said or if my asking a question is coming off as me challenging people or not. Because oftentimes that's what it comes off as. It's just it comes off as me challenging when I'm just genuinely curious about things. Um, and I hate to make it sound like I'm just like complaining about stuff, but honestly, I think part of that burnout was just becoming jaded, kind of even with like social media. Like, I've been doing art since, I was a kid. I've always been drawing, copying manga panels, drawing Dragon Ball Z characters, Naruto, Bleach, all, just copying, and then eventually going to high school. And that's specialized in art. So, painting, fashion design, design in general, graphic design, and it's just I don't know. It just sucks, being in this position. Being in this position where I have to question myself, but it's like the craziest thing is that I end up. Oh, that was my alarm. I think I'm about to look at it. Like, first off, sorry that I'm rambling and all over the place with my messaging. Again, I'm trying to get better at public speaking, but it's just I think I did get jaded. I think I'm still dealing with that jaded the feelings of just being jaded about the industry that I'm in. I'm just tired of people looking down on me, or at least feeling like people are looking down on me, because that's the devious nature of racism, is that unless you're experiencing it yourself, or you witness somebody you know and love experience it themselves, um, it's not something that is going to be easily explained. I can't. It's just there's covert racism and there's overt racism, and in a lot of this industry, covert racism kind of like flourishes. But under this industry, I mean, under this administration, it's a lot more overt, um, and I think it's overt to the point that it's impossible to deny. Um, yeah, we're at that point where it's just impossible to deny, and I think for me, I open this with saying that, as artists, it's kind of like up to us to remember that art is supposed to be political, because that like art in and of itself is political. That's like there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It's political, you know, because it affects how we view the world. It affects how we relate to the world. If you have a favorite movie, that movie's probably affected how you move in the world. I mean, even there's psychological facts about how like your favorite character says a lot about you as a person, because you can relate to that character in some way. Um, yeah, and then ultimately, story kind of dictates or paints the picture that we're seeing, and just like how when we look at any painting, in any museum or any statue, we say things like, excuse me, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So the same thing goes for politics. If you're always looking at politics through the lens of your own perception, you're you're letting you're letting the world influence how you perceive it, if that makes sense. Like, I think recently we I think recently it's been exposed that like the McGraw was like owned by like a very specific person, but it's just like at the end of the day, it's like they're uh, sculpting our perception depending on the books that we read. And this isn't me being anti-book. I say we should all be reading books, especially books that are banned. Um, but if we aren't educating ourselves on a lot of these topics, especially when it comes to politics, we'll always get the short end of the stick. And for me as a black person in America, I didn't really have a choice to decide if I wanted to be apolitical or not, because being black in and of itself is political. And being in college and having people stop me on the side of the road and ask me for if I know where to buy drugs, like I'm on my way to school, people are asking me these types of things. So it's not something that I can escape. And and that's why I said, like, when I'm yapping, I'm going to be yapping about shit that matters to me, and this is what matters to me, is talking about politics. I think I might actually continue sculpting this after I stop streaming. I think his chest is a bit further in. Yeah, so I was gone because everything just got overwhelming. Passing my dad, losing my contract at the end of the day, the politics in the country that we're in, um, AI essentially, taking, or a lot of corporations using AI as an excuse to fire people, and to not hire people. Job postings like, say, LinkedIn or Indeed, you look on those sites and hearing about how they're just fishing for data, and these are ghost ads now. Like, I don't know. It's just the world is changing. It's definitely changing. And I don't know. I think a lot of people know me as like this optimistic person who's always thinking or saying that shit like it's gonna get better, because it will, but not before it gets worse. And I think that's the part that actually sucks the most. That unfortunately things have to get bad before people realize that we have to all take action in some way. Protect each other, ourselves, etc. Yeah, I'm gonna have to rework a lot of this. Oh shoot, I should probably be yapping. Um, yeah, I mean, I think I'm gonna be ending this stream pretty soon. But you know, thank you for getting this far. Me rambling about shit. Hopefully, you know, my next stream I'll actually say a bit more, be a bit more, a lot more coherent. Hopefully. And I haven't even sculpted anything. I've just been in my mind, which honestly, it's okay. I think this is what happens sometimes. But yeah, thanks for watching. You know, like, share, comment if you know you have any questions or if you want me to touch on anything or anything like that. Yeah. All right. Bye.